Stephanie Miller is joined by Glenn Kirschner. Together, the two catch us up on all the latest developments on all the Trump trials. Stephanie?
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Steph.
Okay. So where do we start with all this? So the clock, I can hear the 60 minutes clock in my head, which makes me so happy. I'm sure Trump can too. There's reporting out this morning. Maggie Haberman reveals Trump world chatter about Trump rage at property seizures, possible bankruptcy. So the first thing I've heard is you can't discharge fraud through bankruptcy, debt. Right? I mean, obviously Trump just went on social media and said he has $500 million in cash. So here's where what he says meets a court of law, right? So what?
Well, Steph,
go ahead.
The good news, I didn't hear that he just said that, but the good news for Donald Trump is he can just take that $500 million, deposit it in the court's escrow account. He needs to come up with another couple of $100,000 to account for the interest that will accrue during the appeal. But if he's telling the truth, bully for him. I guess, Tish James won't have to begin seizing his properties. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Donald Trump's probably not telling the truth.
Right. But I guess, once again, there's no consequence for that. I mean, because obviously the judge would say the same thing you just did. Okay, great. Well, then you can pay your bond. But
and not only that, Steph, do you think he would have authorized his lawyers to file that unbelievably embarrassing court filing that said Donald Trump doesn't have the money, Donald Trump cannot get anybody to issue him a bond because nobody trusts him and he doesn't have the assets to secure a bond? Listen, if he had $500 million, he would not have wanted his lawyers to put his you-know-what in the wind like that.
Yeah. Yes. So we were talking yesterday about this, the monitor, what is her name, former Judge Barbara Jones. So obviously it appears to me the judge is concerned also about last minute Donald Trump. What's the legal term? Effery. Let's just say.
Michigas?
Yeah, no, that's not what I meant.
Okay.
Effery.
Got it.
Sorry, I didn't have access to my,
Okay.
Because he wants every detail on their attempt to secure a bond because, the sound we just played for you was his former spokesperson saying what everyone's speculating. He's going to get it from a foreign source if he does do a last-minute Hail Mary. So does the monitor mean we will get some transparency on that?
Yeah, so she is all over Trump. And if he attempts to, quote, dissipate his assets, which is the word Judge Engoron used when he promoted Barbara Jones to an enhanced monitor, which I think is nice. So if he tries to mess around, she's going to be all over it. She's going to report it to the court, and he could be held in contempt. I kind of feel like Judge Engoron may be itching to hold him in contempt because in many ways, Judge Engoron has been very restrained over the life of this case. But here's my favorite part of Judge Engoron's new order. He said, and Barbara Jones is permitted to hire any outside professionals she believes are necessary to oversee what Donald Trump is doing, and Donald Trump will pay for it. Had a little Mexico will pay for the wall ring to it. But don't you love that he has to pay for the watchdogs that will then be overseeing his attempt to play games with his assets? That feels like a little bit of poetic justice.
Yeah. I keep saying that it appears to me, if it's true he can't get the money anywhere, it's because no one thinks he's going to win. So, you know what I mean? Like, otherwise, you having a United States president in your pocket would be a pretty good investment. But I think one of the things I wondered about is I think Letitia James said something about you don't have to get the bond all from one place. You could get smaller ones. Why didn't he do that? I'm just sort of curious.
Because nobody wants to be the person to step up and say, I vouch for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I'm willing to insure him. Think about it. No insurance company, no surety, no bondsman is willing to step up and say, I'm going to go out on a limb here and I'm going to guarantee that Donald Trump will pay out in total at the end of the day if he loses his appeal. So, and who would want to be in that position? So it's not a surprise that he's not able to get anybody to put this up for him.
Yeah. Here is Chris Lavoie wants to rain on my parade story that he'd like you to comment.
Well,
I mean, the headline is from CNN, Donald Trump may be about to get $3 billion richer, but it won't likely solve his cash crunch. It's this Truth Social thing, right?
I don't believe it. I don't believe it for a minute. I mean, think I have been looking at this story, and I've been looking for some evidence that this is actually going to happen. But if it is, the question is, okay, where is all of this money pouring in from? Who's willing to bet on Donald Trump being successful on this, third-rate social media platform that is going to merge with a bigger company? It doesn't make any sense to me. If it happens, we need to know who is the funding behind it. You're going to have to go through lots of shell corporations, I suspect. But here's the thing, Steph. If this was really imminent and he was about to get $3 billion flowing into his coffers, he wouldn't have filed that motion just a couple of days ago saying, or having his attorney say, Donald Trump is flat broke, he can't afford a bond. So the two things don't make a lot of sense to me.
All right, let's get back to the fun stuff. Letitia James takes first steps to seize Trump's Seven Springs Resort in West. She filed in Westchester. Former Trump attorney tells Newsmax that Letitia James absolutely could be targeting could seize Mar-a-Lago. Oh, this is so much fun. It's like playing real-life Monopoly. So obviously she doesn't have to file in Manhattan where Trump Tower and 40 Wall Street, because that's where the judgment is. But so obviously she's getting ready, right? She's crossing her T's and dotting her I's. Like obviously the two Westchester properties.
She's basically perfecting the state's interest in Donald Trump's Westchester County properties in New York. Both I love the Daily Beast article about this because they called it the storied Trump estate. This Seven Springs 212-acre sprawling estate, and they actually call it a Bruce Wayne-like mansion on that 212 acres, which prompted me to say, okay, one thing we know for sure, Donald Trump ain't turning into Batman anytime soon. Maybe the Joker, but I got to give props to the Daily Beast for spinning it that way.
Yeah. Well, so, this is the, Jordan Sekelo, one of the former Trump lawyers, said Letitia James absolutely will target Trump's New York properties, may even go outside the state. She, as far as the courts can infer, sureties may have refused to accept defendant-specific holdings as collateral because using Mr. Trump's real estate will generally need a property appraisals, and his holdings are not nearly as valuable as defendants claim. That was another little Tish James. So... He was asked, do you really expect Letitia James to actually move forward with taking over Trump properties in New York? His former lawyer said, absolutely, I do. He meant this in a bad way, but then also talked about the Mar-a-Lago. So how does she make those decisions about what to go after if indeed she...
That's a great question because, now listen, she did her homework in preparation for the New York fraud trial. They had expert testimony on the true valuation on lots of Donald Trump's properties. So she knows better than we do exactly how much equity each of these properties might have. So she's going to have to make some thoughtful decisions about, on what properties to put these liens and then begin seizing them. And, the devil's in kind of the procedural details regarding how she extracts the value out of each property until it totals the amount of the judgment, which is more than $500 million, not even accounting for interest. So, listen, she has a whole team of financial experts that I am sure are making these decisions as we speak.
That makes me so happy. Okay, state prosecutors, to turn to the other one. State prosecutors in New York said Thursday fewer than 300 of the over 170,000 documents recently turned over to lawyers for Trump are potentially relevant to his criminal defense, and their case alleging falsified business records should proceed to trial on April 15th. It says most of the 270 documents are corroborative of existing evidence. So your friend Norm Eisen said, I've just done a first pass through all 9 filings that were released today in the Manhattan Trump criminal case. I've seen enough. SDNY's last-minute document dump is not going to significantly slow this trial. I'm booking my hotel room for April. What say you, sir?
Yeah, Norm is right. And my 3 favorite words, I poured through the Alvin Bragg filings as well. My 3 favorite words, enough is enough. Enough with the Trump delays. Yes, there were some documents that were provided late in the game. That was in part due to Donald Trump's lawyers subpoenaing those documents from the Southern District of New York U.S. Attorney's Office. They got them late. And yes, Alvin Bragg's office have been asking for these documents for more than a year. They got some late. They turned them over. And it's basically duplicative of stuff that Trump and his lawyers already have. Plus, most of it is incriminating, inculpatory. That's what's in the Bragg motion. So he said, enough is enough. Enough with the delays. April 25th ought to be the date we get this justice show on the road. Let's go.
Yeah, yeah. So, one other this is Norm Ornstein, sorry, talked about Judge Cannon. Her removal from this case and from the judiciary and her disbarment cannot come soon enough. I mean, there's been a lot said about this latest, the words just wacky used about, her rulings. But, I know our friend Harry Littman wrote a piece in LA Times about that. She seems to have protected herself enough. So what are Jack Smith's options for any of that, Glenn? Removal, recusal?
Right now, Steph, the recusal bucket is overflowing, and it's past time that Jack Smith empty that bucket into the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, and let's litigate this issue in the full light of day, and then we'll live with the opinion of the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. But remember, that's the same court that ruled previously that Judge Aileen Cannon abused her judicial discretion, did something the law does not allow to the extreme benefit of Donald Trump, and she, quote, interfered with an ongoing DOJ investigation into the classified documents that were seized from Mar-a-Lago. I do, as a footnote, Steph, this old prosecutor finds it curious that he's thinking about selling Mar-a-Lago to satisfy his civil fraud judgment.
Yeah.
And that would be letting the defendant sell the crime scene to satisfy a massive civil fraud judgment only in America.
Wow. I didn't even think of that, Glenn.
But it's
You're
also
right.
his home. Would he really sell his home?
I don't.
First?
I like the whole, sorry, let me get my Greek scenario.
Yeah.
The feds just come in, take everything, including Moira's wigs. Glenn, yeah, that's it. There are so many layers of this that just are so unbelievable. But I thought it was interesting. His former lawyer, Ty Cobb, talked about Judge Cannon, saying this is a remarkable misunderstanding of applicable law. It's embarrassing. She's been struggling so dramatically in this case since the start, when she butchered the special master decision and the 11th Circuit took her to task for it. This is a totally baffling position. The theory that Trump has the ability to designate classified material as personal records is absurd on its face. There's no legal support for that, but she's put Jack Smith in a position of trying to draft jury instructions in advance that would posit that question to the jury. I think it's such a fundamental error. He said her rulings provide basis for seeking her recusal, but the 11th Circuit would have to agree to grant this request, as you just said.
Yeah, Steph, let me just say, when
yeah.
I read these two proposed jury instructions, what everybody should know is, first of all, when you firm up jury instructions after the trial has concluded admitting the evidence, because only then do you know what instructions of law will apply to the evidence that's been admitted. We don't even have a trial date. And she proposes two jury instructions that, in essence, direct the jury to find him not guilty. These are not accurate recitations of the law in these proposed jury instructions. These are being proposed by somebody who is de facto Donald Trump's defense attorney, his ally.
Yeah.
That's why at some point you have to make the motion to recuse.
Yeah.
Because if we look back and she dismisses it with prejudice, which means it can't be appealed and he can't be tried again, everybody's going to be kicking themselves. Why didn't they file a motion to recuse? You've got to file that motion.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I know it's sort of like, funny, not funny, when, people are like, well, she's the best lawyer on Trump's team. I'll give her that. Can't Judge Cannon. I mean, it's so, yeah, Ty Cobb said a month ago she ordered the identities of witnesses to be disclosed, and Jack Smith pointed out to her that was not allowable. It's really remarkable, some of the things she's done that are just fundamentally unhinged. She hasn't announced a trial date, obviously. He said she will announce a trial date at some point. I don't think she has any intention of letting this case come to trial, obviously, before the election. To her credit, it's not the only case she's made fundamental errors in. She could merely be incompetent. Well, like everybody in Trump world, is it incompetence, malfeasance, or both? Right?
Yeah, I think it's incompetence, and I think it's bias, right? You can't say that, okay, she's just incompetent when every single incompetent move she makes works to Donald Trump's advantage. It becomes more than just incompetence. So, again, time to make the motion. The law says if a judge's impartiality might reasonably be questioned, they shall recuse themselves from the case. Fairly low bar, and let's get this motion filed.
Oh, speaking of Barr, as in Bill Barr, let's talk about what we heard this week from Lev Parnas.
Yeah.
In this just clown car, that the Republicans keep putting on. Lindy Lee summed it up. She joins us next week. Bill Barr tried to destroy Lev Parnas to protect Trump. He lied about the Mueller report to protect Trump. He shielded Kavanaugh from a real investigation to protect Trump. He weaponized the DOJ against E. Jean Carroll to protect Trump. Media, stop rehabilitating this criminal. I always come back to this about Bill Barr and about what, everything Lev Parnas just, what was your reaction this week?
Yeah, so Steph, do we see the pattern that has emerged? Think about Lev Parnas, Igor Fruman, and Rudy Giuliani, right? That three-headed cabal that was, over in Ukraine, essentially, funneling Russian disinformation to the United States so that it could be used to damage Joe Biden. Think about the fact that Lev and Igor, and I think it would be a great movie title, Lev and Igor's Excellent Adventure. Lev and Igor go to prison. Rudy Giuliani is not held accountable at all. Think about Michael Cohen, who's in a conspiracy with Donald Trump to interfere with the 2016 election by paying hush money and then committing felony business records fraud to cover it up. Michael Cohen goes to prison. Donald Trump not a minute of accountability. There's also the parallel with all of the boots of the insurrection, the guys and the gals that Donald Trump said, go attack the Capitol and stop the certification, going to prison, and Donald Trump and the entire hierarchy of the insurrection having no accountability. There seems to be a pattern emerging here.